So yes, we are live. We are live.
Awesome.
So hello everybody. Anybody who's joining in now, anybody who's gonna join in a bit. We are gonna go straight into our discussion for today. So yeah, if you're gonna watch later, please share with somebody. This is a very, very important discussion that we are having today. I know Mojalefa is going to be able to pronounce that word better than I do. So I'm afraid out. So yeah, we are here with Coach Mojalefa Maluka and me, yes, Coach Samu. We are here together to just discuss a very sensitive topic, and we felt that we couldn't keep quiet. When we saw the reports that were there, we saw the videos, we saw the pictures, we saw the news, man, and it was trending. And well, personally, for me, it really scared me just to realize that here is a woman so beautiful, and she's gone, no longer there, and that's the end of the story. Whereas, was it really, really supposed to end that way? The Ghanaian pastor who shot his wife, he had followers of more than 60,000. He has followers more than 60,000 followers. But this woman survived a crazy, crazy relationship, physical, emotional abuse, to the point that her family really tried to intervene. They were taking her out of that space. I shared one of the videos when, the brothers were really angry, and this man literally threatened that he was going to kill her. And guess what? He killed her. That's sad. And I feel we can't allow that to happen again if we have voices and we can speak out. So that's why we are here with Mojalefa. Please like our broadcast. Please share it with somebody. Please tag a friend, just to know that we are here and we are discussing this topic. So maybe Mojalefa, you just want to greet everybody as we begin.
Good afternoon, and in South Africa it's an afternoon. I think it's morning in EST time. Yeah, I think today is one of those very very sobering moments where we have to, I think, self introspect, self reflect and think deeply about our values and our beliefs really, when it comes to human life and how we do life. And I think really it's a time to revisit our beliefs and our values about how life ought to be done as we think about gender-based violence.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm really glad that you roped me in on this, and I hope we'll do justice to the topic today. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I hope you're doing well, Mojalefa, over there in South Africa. I hope you're keeping okay.
I am alive. I think that's what's important. And one of my friends actually said, never forget that you are actually in the middle of a pandemic. So whatever may be slower than normal, don't be too hard on yourself. I was actually talking to my supervisor today, and he was saying, you know what, don't be too hard on yourself. Take it easy and take it one step at a time, one day as it comes.
Right.
Yeah, we can't solve the world's problems, but we can surely wake up and try again another day. Absolutely. So yeah, that's why we are here.
Right. So we are here because we have another day and we are showing up to do what we got to do. And let us know, you guys, you can hear us. Just communicate with us. If you have questions or issues that you want us to discuss in this discussion, feel free to just put them in the comments there so that we are able to kind of address them. If you've got any contributions, your thoughts, feel free to share them. So yeah, we are going to get straight into this discussion. I have given a background already about the situation that we're talking about. This Ghanaian pastor based in the US, he shot his wife dead. Preceding events such that this was an abusive relationship, physically, emotionally, and in many other ways. But there were red flags. Apparently, they were everywhere for this lady, but she failed to get out. So I want us to talk about this, Mojalefa. What do you think is the cause for something like this? Because I think it's one thing for this thing to be happening all over in the world, or in the circular spaces, but when this happens with men of God, women of God, this is another level. And
Yeah.
I just want you to talk about this, because I know you're a man of God. You have had your struggles and things like this, but what are your thoughts about this whole thing? What has been coming to
Yeah.
you mind as you've been thinking about this?
Look, I think one of the things that is a challenge in the church is the culture of silence.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about certain issues, certain topics.
Mm-hmm.
We'd rather talk about the worship team and ushers and Mother's Day services and how powerful the service was, and yeah, look, look, those are all good things, but they're not all that life is all about.
Right.
I don't think that when we get to heaven, we'll be having church services the whole day.
Right.
I absolutely doubt it, because we'll be having mansions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when are you going to live in your mansion if you are in a church service the whole day?
Right. Mm.
Yeah, so that's my wild imagination for you. But look, what I really think is that there are some no-go topics that we need to go back and revisit.
Right.
One of them is the anger that so many of us have.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us, when we come to Jesus, we don't come because life is good. We come because we need a savior.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, at times, there are certain things that we don't treat, we don't deal with, we don't talk about. And our background haunts us. And because certain topics are not spoken about, they really dwell, or they ice up. The best way to explain it is they ice up, and we think, no, because they're not visible, they're gone. And yet these things are just frozen somewhere. There's a time when they come back and they unfreeze, and they come back to haunt us because nobody has addressed those issues.
Right.
It will not help us to talk about gardening the whole day if I have anger issues, and if I have a personality issue, because some of these things are really personality disorders. Somebody was actually pointing out to say there are quite a lot of people that are narcissists in the church.
Absolutely.
And because we've glorified charisma, we've blended it into narcissism also, and narcissism has been blended into charisma, because we look at this person who's extremely narcissistic and we think it's an anointing. And yet this person is actually quite arrogant and prideful and truly believes that his wife depends on him, his children depend on him, and whatever else, or or his husband or her husband depends on the guy, on the lady. So those are things that we need to begin to explore. We need to open the lines of communication and break the silence and begin to talk about the taboo issues, the issue of anger, the issue of abuse, and how much it affects the church, and how the culture of abuse that we live around, the culture of violence that we live around affects us. We need, because if we don't open up and begin to talk about how those things affect us, it will continue to be an issue that's swept under the carpet. And some of it has to do with just our culture, where we come from. That in some cultures it's believed that a man can hit his wife. It's believed, Uti, if you love your wife, you will hit them and put them in line. So and some of that is carried into the church. And because it's not spoken about, it's not addressed. And because it is blurred and it's ambiguous in some cases, it's perpetuated. it is perpetuated. So opening up the lines of communication will be the first thing. The culture of silence is not helping. It's disempowering the efforts to actually put the situation in its place and in order.
Right. I just love how you really started it, because actually you bombarded us with a lot of facts right here
Yeah.
in terms of the causes, and you highlight quite a number. You highlight the culture aspect. You
Yeah.
highlight the uh, disordered personalities that are actually in leadership positions in church.
Yeah.
And for me, that one particularly is very interesting, because
Mhm.
it's a statement I think you already know. I always say that it's one thing to be anointed, and it's
Yeah.
another thing to be whole. So a lot
Mhm.
of times I realize that the challenge that we see in spaces like the churches and the like, this whole charisma aspect that's already going on, that when
Yeah.
people see the anointing, they're attracted to the anointing, but they're blinded now to see that there could be a level of brokenness in that
Sure.
anointing. And even those people who are anointed, they might not even realize that, they are anointed, but they're broken. And
Yeah.
hence, now you've talked about the anger issues that, like you're saying, it's interesting. We can talk about decorating the church. We can talk about so many things. But if we don't deal with the soul issues, with the issues of brokenness in the church, it's a point right there. And I think we need to find a strategy. So I really loved that you definitely went in on that. And I think even in the church setups, it's hard for people to say the word narcissist, especially towards the
It's even
anointed.
hard to pronounce.
Especially towards the anointed, because we have
Yeah.
this touch not mine anointed, and this has already scared people. What are your thoughts about that? I want you to share your thoughts
Yeah.
about that. I love Nyasha is saying this is a real topic, always covered in spirituality, and
Yeah.
I love this godalizing. We've godalized everything, but we haven't been practical. Now people are dying, now marriages are breaking up. What's happening? The cracks are not, we can't keep hiding the cracks. So what are your thoughts about this whole aspect that I just asked you about?
I think my spiritual father actually said the gospel is not enough to just excite the heart. It's not good. Actually, that's what he said. For the
Mm,
gospel to just excite the heart, it needs to change minds.
right, Mojalefa.
And that is where the problem is. Minds are not changing.
Mm,
And I mean, you see how somebody can be so fiery and so powerful and yet have a nasty, nasty personality.
right,
Horrible,
right.
rude, obnoxious, you know. And yet the person, when they're on the pulpit, they are on fire because
Mm,
their hearts have been touched, but
mm,
their minds have not been transformed.
Jesus, that's so.
And that is where the problem is.
Mm,
Can that happen? Yes, it can, because the renewal of the mind is progressive, and
right.
you can put barriers to the
Mm,
renewing of your mind.
mm,
Your spirit can be so saved, but you can be the nastiest person around, the meanest, the most angriest, because you haven't allowed the gospel to transform your mind, to renew your mind. So this discussion is a blatant, deliberate effort to begin to challenge the mind, to
right.
say to us, it's not enough to be
Mm,
an anointed fool. It's not enough to be an anointed, arrogant person. And
wow.
I have met a lot of people like that. I've had discussions with a lot of men who are like that, on fire, loved like nobody's business, but the person does not have a good temperament, a good personality, a good understanding of how. In fact, it's called low emotional intelligence.
Wow. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put you on the spot here, Mujalifa, because you
yeah,
are pastor. You are a
Yeah.
man of God. So I'm glad that we're having you. As you're saying that, I remember seeing videos of this pastor. He was speaking in tongues, prophesying, people would put all these together, and this side of him cursing at his wife, cursing at the brother's wife. And just the whole inequality of that scenario scared me. People in church engrossed in his ministry, and on the other side, how do you think we should respond to this as congregants? What do you think? How do you think we should respond to this?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked that. Look, there's a song that says, and I know you don't like me quoting songs from the world, but
Okay.
there's a song that says, I'm a great pretender.
All right.
It can go from being a pretender to just being a master at duality.
Wow.
And let's be honest, Samu, when I'm on the pulpit, I'm a totally different person than who I am now.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people can attest to that.
Right.
They will tell you that, are you the same person that's preaching there then? And the one, the truth of the matter is that being called and anointed is something that is supernatural.
Wow.
Okay. Preaching is supernatural. Singing in church is supernatural. But the anointing lifts, and at some point also we know how to handle that role. It's a role.
Right.
I can, when I'm at home, I'm a dad. When I'm at work, I'm a lecturer.
Right.
So I know what competencies are necessary for that.
Right.
Now the question becomes, after I'm done preaching, do I have the competency to be a husband? Do I have a competency to be a father? Do I have a competency? And when there is low competence, it manifests in that way, because then I fail at that role. Each one of the roles that we have, Samu, require a certain level of competence. The competence I need to be a student, being a master's student, it's totally different from the competency that I need to be a lecturer and a father. It requires totally different competencies and skills and abilities and even behavior. When I talk to my supervisor, it's different from when I talk to my students. So we need to understand that you being someone, you need to be capacitated to be somebody's wife, to be Bob's wife.
Right.
You being a good supervisor or a manager does not mean you'll be a good wife to your husband.
Right.
And that is what we need to understand. Him being a pastor and a preacher and on fire, it requires a totally different ball game from what he needed to be a good husband, what he needed to be a good father. And because that area was empty, it manifested in him going to the next best emotional behavior or form of regulation that he had. Because emotional intelligence requires self-management. It requires you to be able to self-manage, to self-control, to think about your role, and it requires relational management, which is something that he also didn't have much of also. So there are certain competencies that are necessary in order for you to manifest a good side. Somebody can be a good father, and I'm sure you know that someone can be a very, very good father but a lousy husband.
Absolutely. Yeah, right.
But it requires totally different competencies, and we need to begin to interrogate those issues, because I feel that we are not interrogating them. The issue of how self-aware are you? Emotional intelligence takes self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management. If you are not competent in those areas, you in every particular area, you are going to struggle. And in this area, it is clear that this man's emotional intelligence was low.
Wow. Deep stuff, and Mrs. Namasani said this powerful thing, that the gospel should not just excite the heart, but should change the minds and lives. And that's exactly what you're talking about, that we are desiring all-rounded pastors to come to the fore, who are not just anointed and bankrupt as, husbands, fathers, and the like. And I love how you said that and how you describe this whole so how do we, as congregants, and we realize these deficiencies um in our pastors who are obviously in powerful positions, what can we do to assist? Because obviously there's this whole power play and the respect that we should have for the man of God. He cannot, at times, like you're saying, if he's in that narcissistic form, he cannot even be challenged. What can we do? And especially if we see there's danger for, like the wife in this case, what can we do as the church?
Okay. Look, I think it goes back to that scripture in the Bible that talks about how everybody should be under authority. In fact, we are taught that by the centurion who says, I am a man under authority. So I understand the power of authority. The big problem, number one, is that we are accepting people to lead us who are not led or who've never been led in their lives, or they just have trophy mentors and not people that can take them on. Here's the thing, Sabo. If I don't have anybody that speaks into my life and I listen,
right,
then I'm going to be my own man and I'm going to do whatever I think works. So we are elevating people that have no understanding whatsoever of authority, and they have all this power and nobody can take them on. So number one, we need to encourage a culture of accountability. Encourage a culture of being submitted and submissive. I know the word submission in the church is a word that people don't like, but it's a word that men and women ought to be accepting and working with. So the number one thing, we need to teach a culture of accountability. So, pastor, I understand you are my pastor, but who do you account to?
Right.
Who do you talk to? Who gets through to you? It doesn't even have to be someone. I mean, if somebody's about 60, 70 something, you can't expect them to have somebody above them. Most of the people that are above them are dead.
Right.
But I'm sure there are peers, even in research, which is where I am. There's something called peer reviews.
Right.
So there's no document that goes through that hasn't been peer reviewed. Why are we allowing people to pass through reviews? Pass through to be beyond scrutiny. In other words, nobody can take you on. Someone at my age, I better have somebody that I report to. I better have people that I'm transparent to. Otherwise, I will end up killing somebody. I will end up hurting somebody.
Right.
If everybody around me bows down to me, I have a serious problem on my hands, because there's nothing as dangerous as a man left to his own devices.
Mojalefa, this is deep. This is, you are on fire today, and it's like, hey, I can feel you. I can feel the, because this thing of questioning, of being questioned, and someone being accountable to you, I think it's something that really needs to be spoken about. And Nompumelelo was asking you, Pastor Mojalefa, is self-management not part of the training received when pastors are trained? What's happening in the Bible schools? What's really happening there? Are there systems in place to have this people management, this accountability, this mentorship? Or even at the pastoral level, aren't there any boards that can speak to another pastor and say, you are out of order, you are out of line, or something like that? I don't know.
Look, I think it's a difficult one. I honestly wouldn't have an answer for that, besides to say the only other word that's close enough to self-management is self-control, which is part of the fruit of the Spirit.
Right.
So if we were to look at that, I mean, I was thinking about it, Samu, to say, actually, the Bible does talk to emotional intelligence, and it talks to that through fruit of the Spirit. Being patient, being kind, being self-controlled, and all that. It's just that we have not classified them as emotional intelligence, but they are.
Right.
The
Right.
issue is the exercise thereof.
Mm.
When somebody beats up their wife, clearly they are not self-controlled.
Yeah.
Clearly they are not self-regulated, which is part of what we call personal competencies.
Right.
And because in emotional intelligence, there's personal competencies, there's social competencies.
Right.
So one of the things that I realize, though, is that there isn't enough engagement with them as psychological, topics, like issues to do with mental health.
All right.
It's just that they are obviously covered around biblical topics and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the issue is the discussions that we are having in our churches about the issue. Because it's one thing to talk about that, about pastors, some, but a
Right.
lot of us grew up in the church.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we can talk all we like about Bible school
Mm.
and all the other stuff. The issue is what's going on in the church. I'm a product of the church.
Right.
I'm a product of men's ministry.
Mm.
I'm a product of youth ministry. Then the
Right.
question becomes, what are we discussing? What are we discussing in our youth ministries, in our young adults ministries, in our men's ministries? Yes, I went to Bible school. And in Bible school, I was taught about hermeneutics and homiletics and breaking down of scriptures, eschatology. And yeah, you are taught all those interesting topics. And depending on how long you went to Bible school and the kind of Bible school that you have, they might touch on topics of how to take care of yourself. I've seen a couple of brochures that do address those issues of how a pastor needs to live with his family and his wife. I know there's a certain teacher, a Bible school teacher, who's got a whole curriculum that he does. So it's not everywhere.
Right.
So the one way to best explain it, and I hope I'm doing justice to what Osnompumelelo is saying, is let's talk to the issues in our churches.
Right.
I will, if I know what I need to be and how I need to do things in a relationship, how I need to handle conflict in a relationship without having to use my strength, which is my muscle, and how to control it. If that discussion is made bare, then I'll be able to deal with the issue. But if I go through youth, I go through Sunday school, I go through youth, I go through men's ministry, and the issue is not addressed, and the only time I get to see it is in Bible school, and it's only for like a couple of months, or it's a module, it might or might not actually crack a nutshell. But if it's a prevailing theme, then I will be challenged on the issue.
Absolutely. That's powerful. So now we have been talking about the pastors and the pastor sides and the whole setup on the, we were trying to avoid the word toxic, but
Yeah.
that, nature, like they're being anointed and being totally having these personality disorders that are on the other level. So now we want to move on to obviously the wife, because and the women, or whichever way it comes, because I mean, let's face it, these whole issues of abuse, they're happening to both men and women. Although yes, we do know that the statistics are higher with regards to women succumbing, and like we talked about at the time, that femicide is like on a high. In places like South Africa, women are dying, and now happening and showing up in church spaces where, I mean, obviously the culture is somehow different. Let's talk about that. What do you think was going on, or what usually goes on in the life of a man or woman in an abusive setup, and their failure to come out, their failure to, become free? And then we have such cases like death coming to fore, or they have been hiding these for years and years. I mean, beautiful pictures that we saw of this pastor and his wife. I mean, when you would see the pictures, you'd like, I want to be like that mama pastor, because everything looked picture perfect. But little did we know until now that things were horrendous. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think one of the things that we need to do is have these kind of discussions, number one, because the one thing about life, Sam, is that life is not perfect. And if I'm constantly bombarded by pictures of perfection,
Right.
and I'm not told that you will have challenges in your relationship, in your marriage, things are not always going to be hunky-dory. Then obviously when things don't go well, what am I going to do? I will pretend that things are fine, because then I don't want to be seen as that person whose things are not coming together, you know. So I'm going to act it out. I'm going to make it up. I'm going to fake it, and hopefully hope that I will, hope that I make it. And that's the thing. You know what worries me, Samu, and I don't like using the word worry, is the fact that we've presented ourselves as a perfect bunch of people. And we live in a culture that glorifies perfection. We gloss everything, we filter everything. And it's not just a culture in the church, it's a culture of the time. Because if I don't like the fact that I have a pimple, I can just filter it. I can, if I don't like my hips, I crop them on the photo. Ladies. You know, so we have that culture of augmented reality, and it's in the church. It's everywhere. It's in the church. So when you see people around you being perfect, taking nice, perfect pictures as couples, they're lovely, and they never tell you that, hey, there's no food at home. Jesus. Or the car you see us posing next to, it's you know, it's about to be repossessed, and nobody tells you that side of things, because there's omission of the truth in most cases, and we think that that's not lying, and it's deception. So there's a lot of deception going on, and I think people that end up in most cases in those kind of relationships are people that said, I don't want to be seen as the one that breaks the perfect story or that perfect narrative that's there, that all is bright and beautiful. So there's a lack of authenticity that surrounds Christianity at the moment, and perfect suits, three-piece suits, shiny shoes, and everything. And we forget that you still wake up, and sometimes things are not going well. You get retrenched from jobs being a Christian. It's part of the journey. You suffer sometimes. It's part of the journey. But because we live in this augmented reality kind of thing, we've opted for that whole thing of let's fake it, let's pretend, and we put a lot of people in trouble because they're scared to talk up, because that it brings an element of shame that my life is not perfect, my life is not good, and my life is not doing well, you know, because I'm not having it all good, you know. So people that end up in those relationships also, it's something called codependency. Or a trauma bond, as it's been called. Codependency is usually a case where people are connected because one wants to be wanted, and the other one takes advantage of the other person wanting to be wanted.
Wow. So it's like a dance you're talking about, and that kind of like eventually gels together, the controller and the one who needs to be wanted, and they kind of dance together like that. And it seems perfect, yet it's not. It's all coming from dysfunction, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and there's a lot of that goes on, because the needy person actually exists literally to save somebody's life. It's a messiah complex that's there, even though it's actually an inferiority complex, because you end up thinking to yourself, without me, this person cannot survive. And while in your soul, it's actually without them, you cannot survive. That's why you are doing what you are doing. You found a sense of purpose in a dysfunctional system.
Jesus.
Without that system, you cannot survive. But again, it's the whole thing. I mean, if somebody's a narcissist, they are very good at manipulation, and they set things up so well. And they know how to play the ball very, very well, to a point where you feel like, wow, this is a match made in heaven. You know, they will say things like, you will not survive without me. I made you, or you need me. You know, or I need you. And yet they know that, you know.
I don't want to live
Exactly.
without you. Oh,
Exactly. So it's a really, really sure, tough, toxic atmosphere, a toxic environment where if no one breaks that trauma bond, somebody's gonna die.
Jesus.
Actually, not even just physically, but somebody dies in their soul.
Emotionally.
Emotionally, you die.
And
Your identity dies because without the other person, you have no identity. You don't feel like you're alive. You need that person, you know? And because they're constantly calling on you. Sometimes they do good things for you and all the other stuff. So it's not because this person is particularly bad. I don't think this guy was particularly evil, because then the woman wasn't going to be attracted to this
Mhm.
person. This person wasn't the devil incarnate. This
Mhm.
was a human being that had complex mental issues. And in most abuse cases, and people don't understand this, in most abuse cases, it's not that the person is the devil himself
Right.
constantly beating on this person. It's
Oh,
a mixture of good and evil.
wow.
And that's what makes it difficult to track and to deal with.
Morita, you're loading us. Like you're like it's like you're loading us today. And I just love how you've said quite a number of things. And I want to just go back a little bit so that we kind of have clarity as well. Uh,
Yeah.
and I really love how you are talking about this. We are looking at this whole codependency thing, this trauma bound thing, and I think you explained it very very well, such that I think if someone didn't know about this or didn't realize they were in this kind of setup, they're even trying to question what's been going on with them. And I just wanted to also just add to this and say that I think a lot of times there's a level of blindness, like you're saying, that this person doesn't always appear
Yeah.
bad. He has
Yeah.
moments he can, they actually call it in the psychological terms, love bombing. You know,
Yeah.
they can just bomb you with love, love, love. And then on the other level, this extreme behavior just comes. The anger
Yeah.
just shows up and they want to control and they survive and they thrive on the control.
Yeah.
Wanted to highlight that they thrive on the control, and the moment you continue to yield and the moment they continue to break you and to
Yeah.
heal your identity, you are succumbing to that control. And I think this whole dynamic continues to work, but a person does not realize because of the manipulation and the levels of, and so it's hard to break up. You see that pastor's wife tried to leave the house, and the brother was shouting, "You don't need the stuff anymore. Let's go and start all over." She kept moving around. She kept saying, "Don't do that to him," because there is that
Bond.
trauma bond. And
Yeah.
think the most important part is to realize where you are at. We are not just talking about this to just let it out there. We're just hoping somebody might actually be able to realize, am I in a trauma bond or not? If so, what do I do? So we want to go in a little bit further about that, but just acknowledge also what people have been contributing. And Nompumelelo was saying that that's Muruti comes down to individual accountability. I think she was referring to that issue. Yes, individual accountability. We need to discuss this throughout the church. And thank you. And then Mrs. Damasani was saying, as congregants, we might also be putting pressure on pastors to project a certain mold. And you
That's
really
true.
talked about this picture perfect life. You really zeroed in on that. And I think maybe on the other hand, it's about time we normalize that things can go wrong
True.
and be comfortable with the fact that you can say, my friend, today I'm not okay. We are not
Mhm.
necessarily saying go and speak about your problems to the world because obviously it might not necessarily be safe.
Might well.
But
Yeah.
I think it's finding that place to pour out and say things are not okay. And the picture that I'm projecting is not necessarily the right picture. So I wanted you to go deeper on this issue of, the trauma bonds. How can someone free themselves? Because we're talking about surviving, we're talking about finding freedom from, because at the end, we don't want a negative story to be told. Dead. We don't want that. We don't want any more of these headlines, you know. And especially in the church setup. So,
Yeah.
what thoughts do you have in terms of how could this woman have handled it differently? How can women or men who are finding themselves in these imperfect and scary trauma bonds, relationship, how can that?
Yeah. Okay. So we are going to get basically into the solutions now.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's add on the causes though before we go there, or it's safe to go. You have
The causes. I think we can get into solutions because I think we've dealt with causes, and I think everyone now knows that because of just lack of authenticity and just the environment, man, that we find ourselves in, it lends itself to abuse. And sometimes the cause could be backgrounds, how you grow up,
right.
because you tend to perpetuate
Mhm.
what you've seen. You know, if abuse was never seen, it would never happen.
Right.
So it comes from somewhere. There are issues of the bloodline. Sometimes it's the media. Sometimes it's how you grew up, the world in which we grow up.
Shame, the shame.
Yeah, because like for example, I grew up in a township where we would see girls being slapped around, and it just became part of the fray. You know that if you have a girlfriend, if she doesn't listen to you, you slap them.
Ish.
And so when a girl grows up in that environment, or when they grow up in an environment where they say, Jorge, a man is a dog, so just expect violence from him, it creates that culture. You know, some of the men, it's because they were told you are a man, you are a beast. You know, that's how you respond.
Toxic masculinity, right?
Issues of toxic masculinity.
Right.
So it's multi-causal. There's a lot of reasons why people find themselves in abusive relationships, and that is why it's important to talk. You
Right.
know, how you grow up, how you grew up. You know, find people that you can be accountable to, that can help you to realize what's normal and what's not normal.
Right.
But if you don't communicate, then you'll never know what normal is. I mean, I remember I was talking to someone, and I'm just going to be a bit transparent here. You know, she didn't want to break up with her lover, and they are not a Christian. And they didn't want to break up with their lover because one of the reasons was because although he beats me, we have good sex.
Jesus.
And these are things that are being spoken about. These are things that are going on out there. And that's how people do life.
Ish.
So if we don't address those issues, the fact that if you are in an abusive relationship and you are in the church, if your husband is a pastor, it doesn't justify them beating you up.
Right.
Them being anointed doesn't justify them you beating up. Them having money doesn't justify them beating you up. It does not justify that. And the scripture talking about how divorce is wrong does not justify you being silent.
Ish.
It does not overrule the silence that you have. You talking has nothing to do with divorce. It's a totally different thing. Should divorce come into the picture, it goes into the picture. But you being silent has nothing, you talking has nothing to do with divorce. It's you trying to get out of a situation that is destroying you.
Powerful, empowering words that you have just said right there. You know, and I think people are trapped in verses. You know, people are trapped in these mind frames, in these thoughts. And I think we at this point are saying when something is wrong, we are clearly saying this today. When something is wrong, it's wrong. It doesn't matter who's doing it. If it's a
Exactly.
who's beating you up, if it's a pastor who raped you, if it's a pastor who is emotionally abusing you, whoever it is, or a deacon elder, whoever they are, we are clearly making a standpoint that it's wrong. And
Yeah.
speaking out is not wrong. I just wanted to
Yes.
highlight that you were saying. I love that. That was,
Very important.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think the first thing that we've spoken about is we need to create safe spaces. The subject of safe spaces, it's said that the only place that the term safe spaces is being used is when it comes to the LGBTQ community. But that term is actually a very powerful term.
Mm.
Our churches need to become safe spaces. They need to be places where people can find safety. And I always tell you that I told my young boys, I said to them, you know what? There are girls that will come to this church and they're expecting to be protected. I will beat you up if you touch them and if you abuse them. I will. Because I wanted to make ladies, because they're the most vulnerable, some.
Absolutely.
Women are the most vulnerable people in the church, women and kids. So, you know, when I hear of stories of pastors sleeping around with young girls who are vulnerable, who are at a loss, who are struggling, who are hoping to find some sort of refuge, it makes me so angry. Because I grew up in the church, and if it were not for the safety I got from the church, I don't know what I would have been. I am part of those people that were vulnerable at some point. I was a kid, I was a child. I could have been molested or sodomized or whatever, but I found safety in the church. It was a place I could run to. So the church needs to once again become, you know, in the Old Testament, it talks about cities of refuge. Churches need to be cities of refuge. They need to stop becoming this place of show-offs, of narcissists and show-offs. And we have created that culture as the church. A normal person dressed normally can't fit into the church because everybody's wearing all these tight suits and they've got all these nice keys of cars that they owe and they can't give, you know. But I believe, man, that we need to go back to creating safe spaces in the church so that silence can be broken, so that when somebody's raped outside, they can come into the church and find safety and not be raped by somebody else that's supposed to be counseling them.
Jesus.
Which is so unfortunate. So number one is communication, which is what we spoke about. And I think number two is just having support structures in the church or just in life, in our families. Those, I mean, psychosocial support and just support in general is a very important thing. If we can support men, if we can support women, if we can bring counsel and advice and protection and safety, then people will just die in between, you know, whatever goes on between the church services and us getting home and living. Let me put it this way. People will die in between church services if we don't create support structures.
Wow, that's so powerful and that thought-provoking. And if you think deep about that, what that really means when people dying in between church services, that's scary stuff.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to also just add to what you were saying about support structures. And also, I think the other challenge that we have is that at times the family itself might not be a support structure, whereby a woman is abused and she runs home, and people say, "Go back." You know, that's how marriage is. You know, in our cultures, they'll be like, "Those neta zimba," you know. Hang in there, shingirira, hold on, bambelela, you know, hold on, you know, it's gonna be fine. And that in itself actually empowers abusers at times. And I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but I feel also the family, and I really was encouraged to see the brother of that woman, you know, facing that man head on. A lot of times there's actually fear from the other family to say, "Ah, no, he's our mkwanyana, you know, he's been keeping us, he's been taking care of us, he's been taking care of the family. We can't, you know, we can't say what he's doing is wrong. Just respect your husband, hold on and hang in there." And I want you to be able to also just speak to that, because I think that's another part. Family is another place where we really need that support together with the church. Yeah.
Look, I don't believe in private marriages, like marriages that are closed systems. I believe that a marriage is an ecosystem.
Wow.
There needs to be people that you can talk to honestly about what's going on in your relationship and in your marriage. And what has saved my skin and my wife's skin is the fact that we have people that over the years we've been able to be candid with.
Right.
And such violences and intrusions into people's welfare will continue as long as people still think it's nobody's business. I don't want people knowing my business. I don't want this and I don't want that. One of the ways to protect yourself in a marriage is to make sure that your partner knows that it's not just the two of us in this thing.
Right. I'm going to tell someone.
Yeah. No, there are people that I am accountable to. There are people that I chat with, you know. So let's tread carefully on each other's emotions and each other's heart.
Right.
I will obviously don't
threaten.
You know, don't threaten. But I think having those casual conversations about who are you accountable to, who do you talk to as my husband when you are done with your sermon, do you have anybody that you report to? Do you have anybody that you talk to? So, because it needs support structures. You can't continue to have a closed marriage. Because things happen in marriage. People change in marriage, or the real truth person shows up at some point, you know? So I also don't want us to come to a point where we say, if you have an argument with your partner, there you are, you've packed all your bags and that's it, you are gone. No.
Oh, right.
I don't mean that. What I'm saying to you is obviously when we talk about things that violate your rights, your human rights as a person, violate and threaten your life, two things. They violate your rights as a human being, they threaten your life.
Right.
That's where now you need to say, okay, now this is tricky. But if you're arguing about dishes and who washes dishes, and you really think that your relationship is over, you are being disrespected, then, my friend, you have a problem.
Yeah.
So it's those two things, and I'm glad you raised that issue so that we are clear about what we are talking about here. Right. We are talking about knives being taken out of the kitchen counter. We are talking here about saucers being thrown around and you being threatened.
Verbal
threats. You know, deep-seated anger and all kinds of things. That's what we are talking about. Things that you can record and take to the police, and the police can say you are being abused here. Right. Or a psychologist can say you are being abused here. That's what we are talking about today. So I want us to be very clear, because I don't want people coming and saying, I left them. I have left them. I have left them. They were disrespecting me and not cooking sadda for me. I am done in this very disrespectful relationship.
No.
I have left them because they didn't give me $500. They were only giving me 100. I'm enough. It's abuse. That's not what we're talking about.
Thank you for highlighting.
So I just wanted to talk about that, to say, so let's focus on what's important and not give people tickets because people will always look for tickets not to be stronger, you know, and because we've gone through a lot with my wife. We've had conflict, we've had chaos, we've had all kinds of things, but what makes it work is the fact that people know about that. I've got people that have been walking with us for the longest time in our marriage. And they're aware of a lot of stuff that has gone down in our marriage. It's not a secret. And that is what I'm talking about. The stuff that if I do nonsense, there's somebody that can say, but Mojalefa, this is nonsense. This is not on. Sort yourself out. Fix this. Fix it. Make it work. You know? There are people that can challenge you.
Right.
So the question becomes, who's challenging that relationship?
Yeah.
Who are you allowing to speak into the relationship? If you are church people, then there needs to be some sort of counseling going on in your relationship. Moses had a counselor. Moses had Jethro, Samu.
Right.
A man leading a million people. had counsel. Somebody spoke to him about his relationships, about how he was doing life.
Yes, that's deep.
So because we are not allowing that, then nobody challenges us. And as a result, things don't work out. So I think another thing that we need to look at as a solution, please pay attention to the red flags.
Right. Say it.
Pay attention to the red flags. I mean, if you have somebody that's an eye specialist, here you are dating somebody that's always talking about I did this, I did that, I'm anointed, I'm powerful, I'm great, I do miracles, so great, there's no one else like me. And you are still going into that relationship because the person leads a big church. And you never question why this person is always talking about why is this person always having 10 bodyguards around them? Why do they need their Bible always carried around with them? Why don't you ask, why is this person so engrossed in themselves? Where am I going to fit into the picture? Where are you going to change somebody who's an eye specialist? Secondly, you need to question why you are so attracted to that kind of character. What is it that you need so much? Because neediness also contributes to narcissism.
Absolutely.
Because you feed their ego.
We feed their ego. We feed it with our neediness, with our need to be loved, and they see that powerlessness, that need to be like, and that worship, that and adoration we have for them empowers, feeds their ego, and makes them hunger for more. And but we need to starve that need. And if need be, just do not allow yourself to be engaged or to just continue in a relationship where you already see this red flags coming up. I love this I statement. I've never heard it before. It's so funny. Especially, I love it. It's too funny.
So I think some of the issue is the red flags, man, and even your own red flags.
Oh, wow.
Because you can see red flags, yes, in whatever's going on. But what about your own red flags? When you sit down and you reflect and you think through your life and you think through what can potentially be a problem. If you come from a background where you've always been in lack and you get into a relationship with somebody that offers you everything, then you'll probably stick around no matter what, because you don't want to go back to that life if you have not resolved your inadequacies and your issues, your low self-esteem.
Yes. Wow, I think that is so deep, because I think a lot of times when you think of these abusive setups, we always have an outward looking. We are looking at the other person, but we don't take time to see how we are enabling the environment and how our own function enabling him or her to actually continue on that road, and being able to see those inadequacies and heal. Like you also see these people or women or men who attract the same kind. You divorce this man, the next man you're gonna get, you are getting an abusive man again. Then you live this other, and you keep attracting this. It says something about you, and you need to be able to look inward and see which spaces need healing, which spaces need help in me. Where am I, having challenges, and work towards transforming that, to empower yourself and to be able to fan away those vouchers who are always coming for that blood that they can see in your wounds.
Two things. What am I missing? And what's broken?
Wow.
Two things.
Wow.
What am I missing? What am I missing that's getting me always entangled in these dysfunctional relationships, or so we should try and stop feeding the monsters that are in the church at the moment. That are causing just major concerns for me. So the red flags are the issues to really begin to look at, your own red flags, the red flags. And red flags also are the other things people say. Like if somebody gives you a warning to say, look, man, like I'm a bit concerned about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't ignore some concerns, especially coming from genuine people.
Say they're jealous by relation.
Yeah. that it's gonna end in tears. That's what we call it. If somebody if
mm,
somebody says to you, man, I'm a bit concerned about what's going on here.
mm,
I'm a bit concerned about the fact that you never did premarital counseling. I'm a bit concerned that nobody can speak into your life. I'm a bit concerned about how you have all of a sudden drawn gone into this cocoon or cave
mm,
since you've been married. What's going on? What are the issues? What's happening? This person has all of a sudden taken over your life. You've got no you. I can't see you anymore.
oh, wow.
What's going on? Those are red flags. You need those kind of honest reviews from people.
Mm,
How well am I doing? And they may not come out nicely.
mm,
But when somebody says, I'm a bit concerned
red-
about you, and they have valid reasons on the table, of course, pay attention. Pay
mm,
attention. So red flags are very important. And the next thing, obviously, is that I think that the church needs to start raising awareness. We
mm,
need to have programs around gender-based violence. We need to have programs
mhm,
around building up our our masculine identity for men, talking about the issue of what is a man.
mm,
Because the other thing, Samuel, the honest truth also is that we should not. I want to look for the word. We shouldn't, in the process, emasculate men,
absolutely.
because a man needs to, I need to feel like a man. So in those conversations also, we need to have a frank review of what a man is.
Mm,
What is a man?
mm,
What are the best outlets for me as a man when I feel angry? I can't remove the fact that I have testosterone, and
mm,
testosterone makes me makes like the blood goes to my muscles more than it goes to anywhere else. I
mm,
can't change that. That's who I am.
mm,
So when I get angry, my wife is not a punching bag. When
right.
I get angry, I start my car, I drive, I
Mm,
take a walk, I
mm,
go, I go run.
right. Right. Powerful,
So
practical.
teaching about
Mm,
how to
mm,
handle
mm.
me as a man.
Wow, I think you should actually have a course, Maruti. That sounds, I love what you're saying because those are really practical things. I mean, you can actually have a coaching course on that, just raising positive masculinities.
Yeah.
And because the thing is about being practical, because at times a person doesn't know how to handle the hormones, how to handle all of that, and the
That's true.
culture, and to just empty the cultures that have been put inside and the thoughts about all the negative and toxic masculinities that have been put into men, and men playing a leading role in positivity in addressing gender based violence. Because I think the challenge also that I've seen, I'm telling you, there are thousands of women's WhatsApp groups. There are thousands of women's fellowships where women are being taught how to be good wives and all of that. There are so many, but very few spaces where
Yeah.
men come and talk about their issues as well and get empowered to be the best version of what God really intended a man to be like. So I think it's
Mm.
a really, really powerful thing that I think you and other men really need to take it up and spread it around like fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think, one step at a time. I think with these kind of talks, Samo, we are opening up, obviously, a can of worms, but it's also helping other people.
Absolutely.
Because for me, I've been healed by such conversations. I've been healed to know that, I can be a good man. And,
Mm,
I am, being a man doesn't mean I have to be soft. It
mhm.
just means I need to be able to control my masculinity and control myself. So I think then the other thing is to also encourage the right values and beliefs,
Absolutely.
because foundational to any culture
Mhm.
or any form of behavior are the right values and beliefs. If
Absolutely.
we can teach the right values, what's important,
Mhm.
I need to be taught to value human life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It needs to be something that is central to my theme.
All human, whether it's a man or a woman, the way I value myself is the way I
Yeah,
should value everybody else. The sanctity.
because true,
Mhm.
because values create culture, Samo.
Mhm.
What's important to me creates the culture
Mm.
that's around. So
Absolutely.
if I don't value human life, if I don't value if I don't equate the value or the worth of a woman's life and a child's life to
Hmm.
mine, that's
Hmm.
where also some of the challenges are. When a man thinks he's more important than a woman, or
Hmm.
when a man thinks he's more important than the kids.
Hmm.
Man, some of my kids are important. My
Hmm.
wife is important.
Right.
Uh, you know, they are important to me. Those are people that I can take a bullet for.
Right. Powerful.
And,
Powerful.
and as long as we don't have that culture
Mhm.
of teaching the value of the other,
Right. Right.
the importance of me, my definition, in fact, the definition of a man being a protector and a nurturer,
Hmm. Right.
we need to go back to teaching those values
Hmm.
to serve and protect for men, you know. So that's the other thing. What values are we teaching?
Hmm.
Or are we just teaching people to scatter everyone around the whole day? You know, which I feel that those are just certain things that are teaching us more anger than any other thing. So we need to do that. And then the next thing is we need to teach people to listen,
Hmm. Right.
just to listen,
Right.
because women are battling to even talk in the church because they kind of have figured out that nobody's going to listen.
Listen. And some people can actually just think you are the problem. They don't even,
Yeah,
listen to, there's a problem here.
yeah.
And it's so hard. It's so hard for women to speak out in the churches. There is no space. It's not. It's not safe at all. It's not safe.
Yeah. No, so the listening thing, Samo, is what's concerning for me
Mm.
because we are busy with a lot of programs.
Ish.
You'd be so surprised, Samo. I mean, I got shocked earlier on in my years of pastoring.
Mhm.
One of the girls in my church said something I never thought this person was thinking along those lines.
Wow.
And that day I realized that you need to do more listening than talking, Pastor. Because in most cases you are the one that's always hoying these very wonderful sermons, but
Mm.
these people have their own minds, they have their own lives,
Mm.
and they have things going on in their lives, and you'd
Mm.
be surprised at
Mm.
what they have to say. So I
Mm.
think we need to begin to balance the talking and the listening.
Absolutely.
We are always just the only things we are listening to is the music, we are in
Mm.
trouble.
Mm.
We
Right.
need to begin to allow people to know that you can speak,
Mm-hmm.
you can talk, and I will listen. I
Jesus.
will listen. You know, Jesus used to, before he healed anybody, sometimes he used to say, "What do you want me to do for you? Talk." He
Mm.
didn't just go to people and just lay hands on everybody, and he would listen.
Mm. Right.
He would listen. And I think the culture of listening is not there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People come into 2 hour church services and they're the ones that are just listening,
Mm.
but the leaders and the pastors and the people that are meant to be helping out are not listening because they're the ones talking. So
Mm.
there needs to be a balance. The
Absolutely.
one-way communication needs to stop. It needs to
Mm.
be a two-way communication.
Right.
It may not be on a Sunday sermon or a Sunday service, but we need to create avenues and spaces
Mm-hmm.
where our people can actually talk. You'd be surprised at the stuff you can learn
Mm.
about what's going on in relationships. I have counseled, I've been to court because of couples that I thought were doing well
Jesus.
and they were not. And I was summoned by the judge to come
Hmm.
and see through cases because I had you could never see through it. But it's because people come from a culture of not talking. And
Right.
it's only when people are in front of a lawyer and judges where they start telling you this is what's been going on
Hmm.
all along, and you never knew because we just never thought that it would be safe.
Powerful.
Yeah,
Powerful. Powerful. Wow. And we have run a little bit in our time, but I also wanted you to pour out. And
yeah,
I noticed that I think you've really downloaded. This has been an amazing, amazing session, and we trust that somebody out there has learned something, and like he's saying, we are here to talk. It's time to talk about it. And
Yeah.
in the event that nobody has provided space for you to listen, I mean, Muruti is there, he's open there to just, DM him in his messenger. He's definitely willing to just hear and listen. I am there to listen to you guys, to just see. Perhaps, you just need somewhere to let out. If you're a man, you need to let out. If you're a woman, you need to let out. Reach out, because we are there to serve you, such that, we are not just doing this for fun. We want to save lives. We want to help you out there. If you have no option, and you're stuck in there, there's so many other options. And in addition to all the things that Muruti was saying, don't be afraid to find help. If in the church you are in, or wherever you are in, there is no help, organizations are there to help you. Psychologists are there to help you.
Yeah.
Counselors are there to help you. There are Christian counselors, just the normal counselor. Sometimes it's just necessary to go to that organization and dial that toll-free number if you need to.
Yeah.
Life matters. Moruti was saying everybody matters. Your life matters before God. You are valuable. You're valuable enough to be loved. You're valuable enough to be cared for, to live a full life that you deserve. God wants you, which is above all things, that you may prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. So if you are in that kind of scenario where there are threats, danger to your life, that's not God's plan. That's not God's desire for you. Speak out and find help. I don't know if you have any last words, Maruti, that you need to say to these people. But guys, we love you so much. We do what we do because we love you. Reach out to Coach Mojalefa. He's available. Reach out to me. We are available to talk to you wherever you feel comfortable. Reach out. This positive masculinity. I'm telling you, Muruti is on his way, setting up a program just for you. To be a masterclass, whatever it is. I'm giving you ideas, Muruti. But whatever it is, join in and let's build a positive and, change one person at a time. As women, let's not be silenced. As men, let's not be silenced. Let's speak. As churches, let's create the environment. We love you guys. We can spend the whole day talking about this. So we're gonna be signing out. If you have questions, feel free to DM us. If you want to talk, feel free to do so. And yeah, I think that's it. I'm gonna be able to post this on my YouTube page. If you guys, I think Maurice is gonna do his. Will you do your podcast? Yes, he will put it on his podcast as well. So if you need to just listen to this again, because I need to listen to this. He said a lot of powerful things that I was writing down, but I think I'm gonna listen to it again just to be able to really reminisce and really think about what was being said, so that we maybe help us to somebody. Sometimes it's not you. Sometimes you are the one to share, just to share the broadcast and save the life. So bless you guys. Love you. We are signing out.
Bye bye.